Who is she? And how does she make her food taste so good? One of Mama Kazim's friends asked. Have you tried her food? It tastes like heaven, another one said, making Mama Kazim all the more enraged, but she tried her best to keep her cool. These fine comments about the mysterious new lady's food echoed all around the small Zimbali village. Zimbali was a quiet village, far from the big towns. People lived simple lives, working on their farms or selling goods at the market. One day, a new face appeared, the mysterious food lady. Her name was Anaya. No one knew where she came from. She was tall and slender, with kind eyes, but a quiet demeanor. She didn't talk much. She just set up a small food store in the market. That first day, the smell of her food filled the air. People stopped what they were doing just to follow it. Have you tried it? One woman asked her neighbor. Wow, it smells like heaven. Curious villagers lined up at her store. She didn't shout to sell her food like other vendors. She didn't need to. The aroma alone was enough. Anaya's food wasn't like anything anyone had tasted before. It was rich, flavorful, and left people wanting more. By the end of the day, her pots were empty. The villagers talked about her food all night. The next morning, the crowd at her stall was even bigger. Who is she? People whispered. How does she make her food taste so good? But no one had answers. Anaya didn't share much about herself. She showed up every morning before sunrise with her large clay pots, served her food with a soft smile, and left when it was all gone. No one knew where she got her ingredients or how she managed to cook so much. Some thought she must have a big family helping her. Others wondered if she was hiding a secret. But for now, they were just happy to eat. As the weeks passed, Anaya's food became the talk of the village. People would wake up early just to line up at her store. It didn't matter what she cooked, it was always perfect. One day, she served a thick stew with tender meat and spices that made the air smell warm and comforting. Men and women lined up at her store to get this food. Another day, it was egg rolls with fish roll with sweet aroma. The variety was endless, and the flavors were unforgettable. But the mystery of Anaya only grew. She never bought ingredients at the market. The other vendors who kept a sharp eye on everyone's business had never seen her shopping for meat, vegetables, or spices. How does she do it? One vendor muttered. Maybe she is rich and orders everything from the big city, another one guessed. Or maybe, said an old woman, lowering her voice, it's not natural. Maybe she has powers. At first, people laughed off such ideas. Anaya didn't look like someone who could dabble in magic. She was quiet and polite, always smiling gently as she served her food. As the rumors spread, the villagers began to wonder. She never talks about her family. A young man pointed out. What if she doesn't have one? Maybe she's a spirit, a child whispered, only half joking. Still, most villagers didn't care whether it was magic, skill, or something else entirely. Anaya's food made them happy, and happiness was rare enough that no one wanted to ruin it with too many questions. But not everyone felt that way, especially not Mama Kazim. If you have watched this video to this point, please give it a thumbs up as it helps the algorithm. Let's continue with this story. So you see, Mama Kazim has always been the queen of the market. Her food was famous throughout Zimbabwe. People said her stew could heal a broken heart, and her fried plantains was the stuff of dreams. But ever since Anaya showed up, things has changed. Mama Kazim, once busy store, now sat mostly empty. Her loyal customers were leaving her for Anaya's food. Even her husband and children had started bringing home bowls of food from Anaya's store. "Why are you eating that?" she snapped at her husband one evening. "What's wrong with my cooking?" Baba Kazim, chewing happily, shrugged. "It's different. You should try it." Mama Kazim was furious. She refused to believe that Anaya's food could be better than hers. There had to be another reason why people were flocking her store. "It's not natural," she told her friends in the market. "She must be using something to enchant the food." Her friends, who also sold food and goods, nodded in agreement because they had lost customers too. "Have you noticed how she never talks about where she's from?" one of them said. "And she never buys her ingredients here," another added. Mama Kazim decided she had to do something. Anaya was stealing her livelihood. If she didn't act, her family would go hungry. "She's hiding something," Mama Kazim declared, "and I'm going to find out what it is." That night, as the market emptied and the moon rose, Mama Kazim stayed behind. She hid in the shadows, watching as Anaya packed up her stall and disappeared into the night. Gripping her shawl tightly, Mama Kazim followed. What will happen now? What will Mama Kazim find? Should she have stayed back? Let's continue this story to find out. Please give this video a thumbs up as we go on with this super interesting story. So, Mama Kazim followed Anaya through the quiet parts of the village. The moonlight lit her way, but her heart pounded with fear. She didn't know what she was looking for. She was determined to uncover Anaya's secret. Anaya walked gracefully, balancing her empty pot on her head. She didn't look back once. Mama Kazim kept a safe distance, careful not to make a sound. Finally, they reached the edge of the village, where the trees grew thick and the paths turned to dirt. Anaya stopped in front of a small hut that Mama Kazim had never seen before. It looked ancient, with vines crawling up its wooden walls and a faint glow coming from the windows. Mama Kazim hid behind a big tree and watched. Anaya placed her pot on the ground and pushed open the door. She stepped inside and the glow grew brighter. Mama Kazim crept closer. Her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Peering through a crack in the wall, she saw something that made her gasp. Inside the hut was Anaya, stirring a bubbling big pot. This time, she was dressed up in white, with white beads on her neck and marks on her body. Strange symbols were painted on the wall. Herbs and spices hung from the ceiling, and there were also bones that did not really look like they came from animals. Anaya began to chant softly. Her voice carried a rhythm that seemed to make the air hum. As she stirred the big pot, the liquid inside turned into deep red. Mama Kazim's knees trembled. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Suddenly, Anaya stopped and turned her head sharply, as if she was sensing something. "Who is there?" she called, her voice calm but sharp. Mama Kazim held her breath, frozen in place. Anaya stepped outside, her eyes scanning the darkness. "I know you are there," she said softly. Mama Kazim's heart raced. She turned to run, but her foot slipped and a branch snapped under her weight. In an instant, Anaya was standing before her, her calm demeanor replaced by something darker. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice cold. Mama Kazim tried to speak, but no words came out. Her throat felt tight, as if invisible hands were choking her. Anaya raised her hand and whispered something under her breath. Mama Kazim fell to the ground, clutching her neck. When she finally managed to stand, she realized she couldn't speak. Her voice was gone. "You will not tell anyone what you have seen," Anaya said. "Leave and never come near me again." Tears streaming down her face, Mama Kazim stumbled back to the village. She wanted to warn everyone, but without her voice, she couldn't. She became a shadow of her former self, avoiding the market and staying inside her home. The villagers noticed her strange behavior. "What is wrong with Mama Kazim?" they whispered, but no one had an answer. Baba Kazim continued to bring home Anaya's food, unaware of his wife's secret discovery. Mama Kazim could only watch, her silence eating away at her. Kindly subscribe to this channel if you have watched this video to this point. Now let's go on with this story. What will happen? What did Mama Kazim really see at Anaya's hut? Is Anaya evil? Is she using witchcraft to cook her food for the villagers? Now, who is going to do something about it now that Mama Kazim has been made to lose her voice? Let's continue with this story. Please give this video a thumbs up as we go on. In Zimbabwe's village was a young lady known as Essie. Essie was a young lady known for her sharp mind and unshakable faith. She has watched how Anaya's food seemed to cast a spell over the village. People no longer cared about anything but getting a bowl of food from her store. Even the once lively Mama Kazim was now silent and withdrawn. While others marveled at Anaya's cooking, Essie felt uneasy. Something wasn't right. "Why does no one question her?" she asked her friend Nome. Nome shrugged. "What's the question? Her food is amazing." "But where does she get her ingredients?" Essie pressed. "She doesn't shop at the market. And have you noticed how people change after eating her food? They are different." Nome rolled her eyes. "You are just overthinking it. Just enjoy the food like everyone else." But Essie couldn't. She began to observe Anaya closely. She noticed the way the villagers seemed dazed after eating her meals, as if under a spell. She also noticed how Anaya never stayed to talk or laugh with others. She simply served her food and disappeared. Essie decided to investigate. One evening, she followed Anaya from the market, just as Mama Kazim had. But unlike Mama Kazim, Essie carried a sacred amulet given to her by her grandmother, which she always wore around her neck. It was a necklace with a cross on it. It was said to protect against dark forces. As Essie crept through the shadows, she whispered a prayer under her breath. She didn't know what she would find, but she was determined to uncover the truth. Essie followed Anaya to the old hut at the edge of the village. The same airy glow poured from its windows, and the same strange chants filled the air. Essie peeked through a crack in the wall. Inside, she saw the bubbling giant pots, the glowing symbols, and the bones hanging from the ceiling. But this time, she saw more. Anaya was holding a bundle wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing what looked like a rotting flesh. Essie's stomach turned. She had heard stories of witches using strange things in their magic, but she never thought she would see it herself. Anaya dropped the rotting flesh into the big pot, and the liquid turned a deep, sickening black. She began to chant louder, her voice growing stronger with each word. Essie clenched her armlets and whispered another prayer. She knew she couldn't face Anaya's powers alone. Suddenly, Anaya stopped chanting. She turned her head towards the wall, her eyes narrowing. "Who is there?" she demanded. Essie froze, her heart pounding. She held her breath, hoping the shadows would hide her. But Anaya stepped outside, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. "I know someone is watching," she said. "Show yourself." Essie stayed silent, gripping her armlets tightly. Anaya lingered for a moment before going back inside. Essie took the chance to slip away, her mind racing. She had seen enough. It was time to act. The next morning, Essie tried to warn the villagers. She told them about the dark magic, the bones, the rotting flesh she had seen. But no one believed her. "You are just jealous," one man said. "Anaya's food is a blessing and not a curse," another argued. Even the village chief dismissed her concerns. "Did you have proof?" he asked. Essie's frustration grew. She didn't have physical proof, but she knew what she had seen, and she knew she couldn't let Anaya continue to harm the village. She decided to go back to the hut that night, this time to gather evidence. Essie waited until nightfall to return to Anaya's hut. She wore her amulet and carried a small basket to hold anything she might find as proof. Her heart pounded as she approached the airy glow of the hut. This time, she didn't peek through the cracks. She slipped inside silently, careful not to disturb anything. Anaya wasn't there. The room smelled of herbs, smoke, and something foul that made Essie's stomach churn. She saw the big pot in the center of the room, cold and empty. Strange symbols covered the walls. Hanging from the ceilings were dried plants, jars of powder, and bones. Essie's eyes fell on a wooden table in the corner. It was covered in items, knives, small bottles, and cloth bundles. She opened one of the bundles and nearly dropped it. Inside was what seemed like a shriveled and gray finger. Essie bit her lip to keep from screaming. She grabbed the bundle, wrapped it tightly, and put it in her basket. She took one of the strange bottles and a piece of cloth covered in symbols. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside. Anaya was returning. Essie's heart raced. As she hid behind the door, she clenched her fists, trying to stay calm. The door creaked open. Anaya entered, humming softly. Essie held her breath, waiting for the right moment. When Anaya turned towards the big pot, Essie slipped out quietly, her basket clutched tightly. She didn't stop running until she reached the village. The next morning, Essie went straight to the village chief. She placed the shriveled, rotting flesh, the bottle, and the cloth in front of him. "This is what I found in Anaya's hut," she said. The chief's eye widened as he examined the items. "What? What is this?" he asked, his voice shaking. "It is proof that Anaya is using dark magic," Essie said firmly. "She is feeding us cursed food and using rotting flesh in her spells." Word spread quickly, and soon the entire village gathered at the chief's compound. People murmured in disbelief as Essie explained what she had seen. Some refused to believe her. "Anaya has done nothing but feed us," one man said. "She is kind and gentle," a woman added. "This doesn't make any sense." But others, especially those who had felt uneasy about Anaya, began to see the truth. Mama Kazim, still unable to speak, pointed at the items in the basket and nodded vigorously. The chief decided that there was only one way to settle the matter. "We will confront Anaya," he said, "and she will answer for this." The villagers marched to Anaya's store, led by the chief and Essie. Anaya was serving food as usual, her calm smile in place. When she saw the crowd approaching, her smile faded. "What's going on?" she asked. The chief stepped forward. "We have seen what's in your heart," he said. "You have to explain yourself." Anaya's eyes flickered with something dark. "I don't know what you are talking about," she said calmly. Essie stepped forward, holding the strange items in the basket. "You have been feeding us cursed food. You are using dark magic. I saw it with my own eyes." Anaya's expression hardened. "You shouldn't have gone to my hut," she said softly. "You have made a mistake." The crowd gasped as Anaya raised her hands. A cold wind swept through the market, and the sky darkened. People screamed and scattered, but Essie stood her ground. "You can't scare me," Essie said. "Your magic has no power over this village anymore." Anaya's rage suddenly calmed down. She became quiet, looked sternly at the villagers and said, "You don't know what you have done. You should have let things be." Essie spoke louder. "Your magic is nothing but darkness, and we reject it." Anaya stood silent, her once confident demeanor shattered. She was led away by the village guards, who kept a tight hold on her. The crowd, still in shock, began to whisper. Some called for her to be locked up, while others wanted to forget the entire ordeal. Essie felt a quiet victory. The village had seen the truth, and Anaya's reign of fear was over. The chief called for an emergency meeting of the elders to decide what should be done with Anaya. After much discussion, it was decided that she should be banned from the village. That night, Anaya was taken to the outskirts of the village and told to leave. "You are not welcome here anymore," the chief said. Anaya said nothing as she walked into the darkness, her face in despair, as though she was deeply worried and hurt. "You don't know what you have done," she whispered as she walked away quietly. The villagers were relieved and returned to their homes, but Essie couldn't shake the feeling that something more was still waiting for them. She wondered what Anaya's words meant and why she was so quiet when she was confronted. What will happen next? Why did Anaya come to the village in the first place? And now that she has been exposed, what will she do? Would you like to find out more? Then let us know in the comment section. Kindly subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our uploads.